Fellas, this guy comes in and slaps your girl's ass in the club. What you doing? That's right, pulling up his embarrassing high school photos. So one of my favorite genres of fantasy is like the dopey kid fantasy. You got things like the original Lord of the Rings cartoon, which a lot of people hate, but I actually love them for what they are. Then again, I grew up in a time where I could watch the good Lord of the Rings and these, so this is more of just like a plus. It's not the only like movie adaptation of this story. So all the changes they made, like calling the Shire Hobbiton and all that shit, I can live with. But it is the type of fantasy I grew up watching, and it infected it infected how I viewed fantasy and what I think when I think of fantasy type themes. Like the way these characters are drawn with the big noses, wizards having the big pointy hat, how they draw the beards, all of that. Like that is like when I play D&D, even that is what I think of in my head. And I mean, I have all of these boys. Actually, this is partially an update. I got them. I got these three like as a bundle together, which I haven't actually watched this one myself, but I have watched these two, and I loved them as a kid. And then another movie that a couple years ago got a bit of attention and resurgence in like the popular eye is this one. This is The Last Unicorn. If you're a fan of Ninja Sex Bang, hey Liz, brah. You'll be well aware, but for those who don't, it's a really fantastic movie. The owner lost the rights to it he got fucked in contract. I forget the legalese of it. Anyways, he owns the rights to it again. He took it on tour, and Ninja Sex Party helped promote him. So their fans ate the shit out of this movie. But it was originally the only place you could see it for the longest time was on VHS. They didn't really put it on anything. So and there's this like whole like fantasy like cartoon like period of movies that I fucking adore, and there's one I don't have yet called Wizards, and I would love to get a physical version of that. It's actually on YouTube for free. I highly suggest watching it. It's probably one of the best animation things you'll ever see. But yeah, whenever you get these things on VHS, I just really love how they were marketed. I'll pull up a few different versions, but just Lord of the Rings, like look up The Hobbit, you're gonna see like 6 different box arts. This is one is my favorite just because of how kind of dumb it looks. Like they were not trying real hard to move copies of this, let me tell you. They just kind of have like snippets and like some like cut out like cells from the movie. And look at fucking Gandalf over here, fucking he got his beard waving through the hole. He's gonna get Bilbo. Also, look at Bilbo's pipe in this movie. It's fucking goofy as fuck, but it's campy. I love that shit. The place is Middle Earth. The time is long ago when man shared his days with the elves, wizards, goblins, dragons, heroes, and hobbits. Bilbo Baggins is a hero and a hobbit. A roundish, peaceable homebody who sets off on a dangerous quest, even though adventures make hobbits late for dinner. I fucking love how campy and ridiculous this is, and look at how good condition mine is! I was really excited when I opened it, because I was expecting it just to be fucking trashed. They didn't package it good. I could feel, like, when I got the package, I could feel they did not bubble wrap it at all. So, I was very worried. You see, it's half watched. It's because I'm halfway through a sitting, and it's like I gotta distract myself from my world literally ending. But yeah, so I love the newer Lord of the Rings. I currently don't have all 3 of the original trilogy. I have the beginning and the end. And it's just because I'm picky. I for some things, I really want it to look basically brand new. Like, my Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring is kind of worse for wear. I'll probably replace it if I see one better. I just haven't seen one better at a Goodwill, and it's not something that is rare enough for me to like go search for it individually. But while I love these movies, I love how mainstream they made the fantasy genre, but they also changed it. Like this like changed how people saw fantasy. It wasn't that goofy wizards and pointy hat fantasy shit like you get with Last Unicorn over here. No, it's kind of like how, you know, Batman changed, like, superhero movies. Like, before the Nolan Batman films, you got Batman movies like this hunker-rungaroo. Look at how fucking fantastic that is. It's straight out the comic book, that one. Yes, they're like different tastes, so it's like same coat of paint, but completely different movies, and there are their own interpretations. But every fantasy movie that has come out since Lord of the Rings has like this gritty undertone of realism that's like, it's fine, but it's not the fantasy that caught my attention when I was a kid. It's there's very few live action shows that keep that like whimsical, like childlike fantasy. The only one that really comes to mind is the Merlin TV show, if you remember that, where they focused on him, and it was like a spirit, like not a spirit, a mythical, magical thing of the week type thing, and it was super campy, but I fucking ate that shit up. And like it's really annoying that the only type of like whimsical, like kind of funny and just like easy to get into and like show kids and then like get interested really quick, cartoon-esque fantasy things are things poking fun at the fantasy genre. And if they came from America, they're going to be full of tits and dick jokes, and it's going to completely take you out of the fantasy element. Like, you're going to get things like Year One, which isn't necessarily fantasy, but it's like a medieval thing, or Meet the Spartans, where they're poking fun and they'll have funny things every now and then, but they're more of like how Scary Movie is, where they're just trying to make tits and dick jokes for a mature audience, and it's like, they're fine, but that's the only kind of whimsical shit I ever see, because it's always this dark, gritty, fucking, you know, depressing shit. So Game of Thrones was the biggest thing that happened in the genre since the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. And even whenever they went back and tried to do the Hobbit movies, it didn't do good. They split up the Hobbit into three things. It was really panned out. But the reason the Hobbit is so childlike and like simple and like whimsical and goofy as it is because it's a fucking children's book. And it was written for little tiny kids to make them shut the fuck up and go to sleep so daddy can drink some whiskey. And that is... ew. There's a little spotteroo that I didn't realize was a spotteroo till us now. You're getting some real action of me rubbing off a stain. Who knows how many decades this thing has. Probably seen more wars than me. There we go. Good as no. So whenever they tried to recapture like the mood of the original Lord of the Rings, which was written to be way more gritty, way more adult oriented, because both of them were written for J.R. Tolkien's kids, just at different points in their lives, it didn't work. And so every time they try to adapt an older tale, it doesn't quite work, because they try too hard to be this when they need to be this. And like, I saw a Reddit post about what if they made a live action Last Unicorn, because it's starting to get kind of a cult following through the years, and I just don't think that would ever be good, despite the source material in the book being so great. They'll try too hard to make it these gritty, gruesome masterpieces, and they won't just let it be a campy fun ride. And it's not like these are for children. I like the children fantasy, because that movie I mentioned for a brief minute before my ADHD brain went and just talked about completely different things, Wizards is an adult animation, and it's just as cute and whimsical as this shit, but there's tits and ass galore. I really wish I had a physical copy of that movie. It's one of my favorites, but it's on YouTube. You really need to see. It is the peak of this genre of fantasy. I'm just going to call it dopey fantasy, because I don't know what the fuck to call it. It's a great distraction in 2020, though, let me tell you. There's a shit ton of these movies. These are just the mainstream ones, honestly. I highly suggest, if you're getting into the hobby, you find these a dime a dozen, because back in the 70s, kids loved the swords and the shields and the hurrah. You know, second thought, the closest thing to another like whimsical childlike fantasy was the Harry Potter films. They were great. In the beginning, that's the first movie is how a live action Hobbit should have felt. that's how it should have felt. But even the Harry Potter films didn't stay that, because by the time you got to, like, even halfway through Goblet of Fire, it was very melodramatic. It was very grayscale. It was very depressing, inner turmoil dramas. It is very analogous. Hobbit was first Lord of the Rings. Very whimsical. Lots of fun. Didn't take itself too seriously. Harry Potter did the same thing, and it just got depressing as it got older. So it's like, I know they can do it. They have done it before. But I don't see it happening again, because these movies just infected the entire industry. I don't like that I keep saying infected, but it's honestly what they did. Yeah, this isn't quite a collection video. I mean, it kind of is. I mean, I updated you about some of the fantasy movies I've picked up. I think I showed off The Last Unicorn already. But me talking more detail about some of the things I picked up and why I picked them up. It's a bit of a fun one for us, mate. Also, one of my friends that I showed the voice to that I do here is why I keep doing a bad, I know it's bad, Australian accent. And it's just because my fucking persona is a kangaroo. And I feel like I gotta do his voice every now and then since I'm using his face on the channel. But if you want a good kangaroo accent, look up Dank Pods, because he also showed me a format I could talk about my weird niche hobby, and it just coincided that my persona was Australian. My persona is an Australian man, not a kangaroo. He's just an Australian man. Fuck, this is going off the rails. I'm not even talking about tapes anymore. Alright, and I'll see y'all next time. I'm leaving. I'm going down to the prairies to wrestle me up some latte.